I'm Alan Robarge, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. I like to talk about attachment injuries and healing attachment trauma. And this video is about healing work that works. It's part of a series, explore some ideas very specifically about self-directed healing and how you're in the driver's seat of your own healing work. And you have to identify what's the path, what's the focus, what's the plan, what are your resources, what are the obstacles, and what resources do you need to come into? And everything happens in chapters and stages of transformation. And we need to hone in on, we need to have a sense of where are we at in this process. This video is potentially a little bit advanced for a particular stage of where you're at. And so it might be something to look forward to, or you might be at the place where it's time to confront your over-identification with your suffering. And let's start with abandonment. Let's this video be about feeling abandoned, being abandoned. You have those feelings. And over time, if we have many years, many thoughts, many difficult times around abandonment, being abandoned, very much unresolved woundedness from childhood in our families, we become an abandoned self. Our identity is you're the abandoned one. You internally over-identify with, well, this is who you are, this is your experience. So it's no longer the feeling of being abandoned, it's now you are the person who's been abandoned. And it's your identity. And this creates an outlook on life, a perspective. Think of it as putting on certain glasses. You put on these glasses and then you're seeing the world through the lens of the person who's been abandoned. Now, again, if you're in a stage of your healing process, a stage of transformation where you're really coming into, maybe for the first time, where you have to look at what has happened through the lens of being abandoned, being hurt, and the fear of abandonment. And you learn about yourself, you learn about that history, you make sense of it, and oftentimes that's about coming out of denial and really lining up all the puzzle pieces of the confusing history that have created this equation that has equaled abandoned. You're abandoned. You were abandoned. And you still have these feelings. They linger. Your brain, your relationship template defaults to believing that you will be abandoned again. And also it triggers within your nervous system, within your felt sense body, a very great, profound, crushing sense of fear that you cannot feel that feeling. It's one of the worst feeling ever. When we live in that place for so many years, and when our mind is conditioned to have an aversion to feeling those feelings, and we believe that this scary monster is the most scary monster, many times the lens that we are perceiving the world through and how we are orienting our story and our sense of self through the lens of someone who's been abandoned, we only can experience ourselves as someone who's abandoned. The healing work that works, the path, the plan, the challenge, is that at some point you're going to say goodbye to your abandoned self. And you're going to say goodbye to carrying that as part of your identity. And then the next question is somewhat rhetorical. The next question is a contemplative, meditative question. The question doesn't need an answer. To sit and hear, to allow yourself to exchange with the question, who would you be if you didn't overly identify with being the person who's abandoned? Who would you be then? Let's think of this as a raft going across suffering's river. And we build the raft out of what we have. So if we have feelings of abandonment, we have history of being abandoned, we have these feelings of being hurt, well, we build the raft out of our suffering. We build our raft out of being hurt. And we allow ourselves to move into those very difficult feelings, to make sense of that history, to put it into perspective, to see it sometimes from a logical, rational place, to also see it from a very emotionally heartfelt place, to see it from the point of view of our adult self, and to see it from the point of view of our younger self, or younger selves, plural. And when we do this, that in and of itself is a chapter or multiple chapters in your self-directed healing process. And you get to the other side of the river, you even leave the raft at the shore, and you are entering a different stage of your healing process. And in order to access more resource, insight, creativity, playfulness, joyfulness, adventuresome, or adventure nature, in order to access the spaciousness of more resource, you have to be willing to put down, to say goodbye to the identity of being the wounded one, the hurt one, the abandoned one. And that in and of itself is a grief process, a grieving process. Hello, abandoned self. Hello, abandoned feelings that I have overly identified with and think that they are mine, and I'm it, and it is me, and I'm the abandoned one. And I look in the mirror and say, that's not who I am anymore. And I'm willing to say goodbye to being the abandoned one. This doesn't mean that we get confused or deny the reality of the history or the evidence of being abandoned. It doesn't mean that we're never going to feel the prickly, uncomfortable, painful, sometimes urgent, torturous feelings of abandonment, the urgency around not wanting to be abandoned again. You might, for the rest of your life, still be challenged to feel those feelings. But we're trying to not put on the glasses of abandonment, to see the world through the lens of abandonment, and to realize there are other ways of orienting. This is a practice of healing work, and hopefully it's healing work that works for you. If you like this content, if you like what we're talking about, this is the content that we explore and share in the membership community, Improve Your Relationships. It's an 8-week program that's reoccurring. It's a community of like-minded people who are kind and supportive, and people who want to talk about healing work that works, and wants to talk about self-directed healing, and wants to talk about changing old patterns of relationships into new skills and creating new relationships. And that also means inviting a new sense of self. This work takes discipline. This work takes continual participation in your own process, and also a willingness to be vulnerable to share with others. If this is something that you would like to share with others and to learn, it's a collective community of learning work, learning community, please join us. There are over 180 resource videos. There are a number of articles and ongoing resources and worksheets that you can interact with, participate with, and then you share your process. If this interests you, please go to alanrobarge.com/community. Check out all of the details, learn about it, register it. We'd love to have you. More videos to come just like this. Thank you for listening.